Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another Short War video, and today we have very big news coming out of Ukraine that last night Ukraine struck at least 3 major Russian oil refineries inside of mainland Russia, and we have all the news and footage from that. And we're also getting word as well that South Korea is now reconsidering the ban on shipping arms and weapons to Ukraine in the midst and also the aftermath of that Putin visit to North Korea. And now South Korea is stepping up, and that's being met by some pretty severe provocations by Putin as well, and we'll cover that in just a moment. And finally, we are also hearing that Russia is now considering changing its nuclear doctrine from a defensive one to a first strike policy in a pretty big move. But with that, we're jumping into our first news article of the day, which goes to Null Reports. And right here in the post, we can see that Ukraine hit at least 3 oil depots / refineries in Russia overnight, and UAVs visited the Afibsky refinery in the Krasnodar region, and also the NM oil depot, as well as another refinery in the Tambov region, and it was hit by at least 3 UAVs. So we're seeing here once again Ukraine is returning to their mass strikes on the Russian oil industry, which is very crucial to try to tear down the Russian economy, which is funding the war effort inside of Ukraine. And it looks like the Ukrainian government is once again returning to the strategy of striking these petroleum sites, which is very good to see. And in our next post here, we actually have footage here from OSINT Technical of the Ukrainian attack drone successfully striking the Russian Lukoil oil depot in the Krasnodar Krai region this morning or last night, setting the facility ablaze. And also seen here, a Ukrainian drone slams right into the depot. So let's take a look at the video and see what we have. And right here you can see the depot's already on fire, and boom, there's another big explosion right there on the depot, right there at that Lukoil facility. So a pretty big hit by Ukraine, and once again they're sending in the heavies, the heavy guns on these refineries to blow them up and make sure that they're completely out of action. But with that, we're moving into our next post here, which also goes to OSINT Technical, and we get some more details about the attack on the Russian Lukoil oil depot in the Krasnodar Krai region, and we know for a fact that at least 1 Ukrainian drone hit the facility's tank truck depot, likely setting multiple vehicles ablaze, and that was the extent of the damage. And we're also seeing as well that the fire is spreading around that depot, and the Russians are having a very hard time putting it out because the Russian firefighters simply don't know how to handle fires of this magnitude. So once again, 3 more Russian oil petroleum sites taken out, which is a big win for Ukraine. And speaking of fires not being able to be put out, in our next post here from Null Reports, we're getting satellite images which confirm the fire at the oil depot in Platonovka in the Tambov region is still burning. It's still on fire, and the Russians have been unable to put it out. And as you can see right here, here's a picture of it. The oil depots are on fire in a huge way right here, and all of it's catching on fire and it's spreading. And the Russian fire department really doesn't know how to put this out, and they keep putting water on it, which keeps making the fire worse. And that's what happens when you put water on a fire like this. And you can see right here from the satellite footage that it is definitely a huge blaze. And also, this is not the only one that's still burning. And in our next post here from the Ukraine front line, we can see that the oil depot that was attacked in the Russian city of Azov is still burning, even for the 3rd day in a row. And it even seems to be gaining momentum because, like I said a moment ago, the Russians are putting water on these fires, which are making them worse. So let's take a look at the video and see what we have. And look at that. That fire, that's the 3rd day, by the way. This is not a brand new fire. This is the 3rd day in a row this fire's been burning like this. So it's crazy to see. This thing's actually going to end up spreading to nearby areas as well if they can't get it under control, because that fire is raging. You can even see the smoke from the roadway down here, and the Russians are looking on, probably in horror, thinking, why can't our fire department put this stuff out? And they should know the answer. It's because of Russian incompetence. But anyways, I think you get the picture. Pretty much the entirety of Russia is on fire at this point. But anyways, moving on to our next post here. This one goes to Visegrad 24. And switching gears just a little bit to South Korea. Remember, Putin just got done visiting Kim Jong-un in North Korea the other day. And today we're learning that South Korea is now announcing it will consider to start sending weapons to Ukraine after Russia signed the Comprehensive Security Agreement with North Korea, including mutual defense. And this announcement was made by the National Security Advisor in South Korea. And this is actually a huge move, unprecedented actually, because there's currently a ban in place in South Korea, which does not allow the government to send weapons directly to Ukraine. And now, as a result of Putin going to North Korea and starting a whole situation with basically the new Mutual Defense Pact, now South Korea is getting very upset and angry, and they're saying they're going to reconsider that weapon shipments to Ukraine and also the repealing of that ban. And this is potentially very good news for Ukraine because South Korea is a major arms manufacturer, and those weapons that they're making could be a very big help to Ukraine fighting the war against Russia. And I think even Putin knows that, and it's also causing some rifts between Putin and also the South Koreans. And in our next post here, in preparation for that rift, we have a post from Nexta that says the U.S. has now moved nuclear bombers closer to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, aka North Korea, after Putin's visit. And it says the United States has increased the presence of strategic forces in the Asian region after Putin got done visiting Kim Jong-un, which resulted in Moscow and Pyongyang restoring the military alliance established in the early 1960s, and a group of B-1B Lancer nuclear bombers has been sent to the Guam Air Base in the Western Pacific Ocean, which is the U.S. military's Indo-Pacific Command, said Thursday. And also, as Stars and Stripes writes, almost simultaneously, the U.S. Navy's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan, and also the missile destroyer USS Robert Smalls arrived in Guam for the first time in almost 2 years. So I think what this indicates to me, in my opinion, in my analysis, I would say this indicates that Putin is trying to start something between North and South Korea. And by Putin going to North Korea and signing that defensive pact, he has created a rift between South Korea and North Korea. And now we're in a catch-22 because Putin has signed a mutual defense pact, which means that if North Korea begins having a problem with South Korea, Russia is now obligated to send arms and also military aid to North Korea to help defeat South Korea. So this is actually turning into a very nasty situation that could break out in an unfortunate circumstance. And I think that's probably the reason why the U.S. is now deploying these nuclear bombers and also nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, is because we see the potential for this to break out into a bad conflict between the North and the South. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it and see. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to Insider Paper, and we're also hearing, sort of backing up that fear that something could break out between the North and the South. Putin is now saying that he does not rule out sending weapons to North Korea even before any conflicts break out. So it sounds like Russia might be trying to arm North Korea to start a conflict even before it breaks out. So that is also fueling the fears that Putin is trying to set up a distraction to distract the West from the Ukraine conflict and redirect their attention to the Asian region. But with that, we're now moving on to our next news article, and this one goes to Status 6 Military and Conflict News. And we're hearing from Russian President Putin that Russia is now considering possible changes to his nuclear doctrine. So right now, as it stands, Russia actually has a defensive nuclear doctrine. They do not have a first strike doctrine, which means that they cannot strike first in the event they perceive a nuclear threat coming their way. They have to wait until something's done to them. At least that's the policy we've been told about. But now we're hearing Putin wants to change that to be able to have a preventative nuclear strike. He doesn't yet need it, he said, but he's basically considering it to basically threaten the West with another nuclear threat. So we'll have to see if that becomes reality or not, but that idea is being floated around according to Russia state media. But with that, we're jumping into our next article, and this one also goes to Nexta, and we're getting some very good news about the Patriot air defense systems potentially going to Ukraine in the future. And it says right here in the post that Washington will suspend orders for the Patriot air defense systems and missiles from other countries in order to redirect these air defense systems and missiles to Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. And also we're told the U.S. may formally announce this decision on Thursday, which is today. So we're waiting to get the formal announcements of this, but it sounds like the Patriot defense system orders are being taken off the table in favor of sending stuff to Ukraine instead, which could be a smart idea, but let me know down in the comments below what y'all think about that. Do you think that's wise to cut off the orders, or is it wiser to go ahead and send that stuff to Ukraine and go ahead and ensure their defense? But anyways, in our next post here, we're also getting good news about the Patriot air defense systems, and in this post from Nexta, we can see that the Romanian Defense Council has now decided to transfer a Patriot to Ukraine, and in addition, the USA is going to suspend those orders like we mentioned just a moment ago. So all the way around, it sounds like there's a concerted effort by allies to send more Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine, including now Romania. So very promising for Ukraine to get all this air defense systems they need to be able to defend their territory. And also, speaking of big advances here, also from a post from the Kyiv Independent, we're learning that Rheinmetall, which is a German defense contractor, has now received an order for 155mm shells, and Rheinmetall is calling this the largest order in company history. So we're not told the exact number of shells that's been ordered here. Obviously, that's a company secret. However, it is the largest in history, meaning that a lot of people need shells and they're preparing for something to happen, and Rheinmetall seems to be the one stepping up to actually make this order happen. So very good news, because the artillery shells are turning out to be a very important component of fighting the war against Russia, and it could be an important component in the future if NATO needs to defend itself. But with that, we're moving on to our last post of the day, and this one goes to Blaskovka. And we're learning that Ukraine has banned the activities of the political party Nash Krai after it was created mainly from ex-regionalists, and in addition to the ban, the property, funds, and other assets of the party were transferred to the state. So I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't know much about the actual political parties inside of Ukraine, except for Zelensky's party, but this is quite interesting news right here. This is a political party which has been banned and also all their assets seized. So I'm going to withhold my opinion on it for the moment, but let me know down in the comments below, is this a good thing or is it a concerning thing? But with that, that is actually our last post of the day. And I hope you found today's video informative, and if you have, please press the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well, because that greatly helps us get the news out there. And also, if you want to support our operation financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for that, where you can go over to Patreon, sign up for a monthly membership, and that greatly helps us keep the news running, because of course, we are almost entirely crowdfunded by the viewers, and it is you, the viewers, that make all of this possible. So huge shout out to all you for that, and also huge shout out to our Patreon subscribers as well. But with that, we'll see you all at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight for our nightly war news stream, and with that, bye bye for now.